It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
All right, the podcast is back. Happy to have you again. Welcome to this week's edition of the Growth Podcast. Thank you very much for staying with us. The year is looking good. January, I think this must be the last week of January. Yes, this must be the last week of January. Next week, when we come back, it will be the month of love, February. But talking about January, we're ending January on a business note. We're talking to one of the most celebrated entrepreneurs in the country. He has been doing business for a very long time. I think the last episode we posted, someone said, bring someone to teach us about business. And we had. And here we are. We're talking to someone who is an entrepreneur. He's also a DJ, apparently. I'm talking about Mr. Fisho Mwale. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Sulanji. I'm amazed. There's so many exotic places in Lusaka, and this is a functional, exotic, and just wonderful idea to get into broadcasting.
No, thank you. Yeah. And you're saying you actually want to do a podcast on music as well?
Yes, I do. Yeah, so that I can at least avail my music to many other people who are not able to tune into a radio station. So, and I think for historical purposes, because when you podcast, you archive. And, that's the whole essence, record-keeping data, so that posterity can always refer to the pathway of your life. So this is a great idea.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we look forward to indulging in your podcast.
Yeah.
I'd like to move the microphone.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm moving backwards. I'm scared of microphones too.
No.
Even though I'm a DJ.
No, these are your things as a DJ. And most people don't know the DJ side of you, eh? You don't sell that as much as you sell the business side?
Well, you see, I guess it's one of those bucket list things, what you are able to do in your life, what you want to achieve. And each one of us must have their own set of hobbies. And a hobby must be able to contribute to you, not only in terms of aesthetics, but in terms of value, in terms of enriching you, in terms of providing you with that therapeutic aspect which every one of us needs. So I always say that go for a hobby, but and this is where the definition is in life is all about. A lot of people fear doing what they want. They don't want to express themselves. Even about business, it's all about your self-expression. It's all about your achievement motivation ratio, where you want to go, how you want to go. You express that through your energy, through your dedication, through your creativity, innovativeness, and utmost above all, your determination to succeed. But do what you want to do in life, as long as it doesn't impinge or disturb other people's rights. But that self-fulfillment of achieving what you set out to do is a cornerstone of success to business.
Interesting. Before we get into the nitty-gritties of our conversation, I've got 3 boxes here, these glass boxes. There are 3 papers. Each paper has a question. So pick 2 out of 3, leave out 1. And you have to answer the questions that are there just for us to, kickstart our conversation today.
Okay.
So just feel free to pick any 2.
You know what I do? Whenever you get lost, whenever you lose direction, just turn right. So that's my dictate in life. I'll take the first one on the right.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
When you turn right, you always find your way.
Okay.
Right?
So this one says, would you rather have no money or no love?
I would rather have no money or no love.
Yes.
I'd rather have love
Than money.
than money, yes.
So you'd rather have love and you're poor, nothing?
No, because through love, you find motivation to make money.
That's a very smart answer.
Yes.
Okay, which one now? Of
Yeah.
these two?
It's all about love. It's all about love of what you're doing, then you definitely achieve. You see?
It's a smart answer. I
Yeah.
like it. Okay, which one between these two now?
I'll take the middle one.
The middle one. All right. It's still on the right. Okay. What sport have you failed to understand?
Polo.
Or you failed to understand polo?
I failed to understand polo.
I won't comment much because I also don't understand it.
Yes. I failed to understand polo because polo is one of the most dangerous games. And because you are riding an animal with so much strength and energy, I want to be in control of my environment. I want to be in control of that animal. Even the way it breathes when it's under stress, the horse, the muscles ripple as it is hurtling you. You're on its back, unprotected. I think it's my most fearful game. It's different to, let's say, car racing, because that is one of the most safest cockpit. The Formula One.
Yeah.
You can't, I don't think you can die nowadays in Formula One racing because they are manufactured to protect the driver. But on a horseback, at 40 kilometers an hour, you are running after a ball. Nope.
Anyway, you see, now we've set the tone for our conversation. So you grew up on the Copper Belt.
Born and bred.
Born and bred on the Copper Belt.
I don't know if I grew up on the Copper Belt because I left the Copper Belt when I was 9.
9.
Yes. So I don't know if
But can you speak
that
Bemba?
is. I speak pure, perfect Bemba.
Yeah, because I've never heard you speak Bemba. I always just hear you speak.
No, I speak
Chakwan.
Bemba. No, I speak Bemba, especially to the lady folk. When you are under stress, you can speak any language, my man. But okay, I do speak Bemba, but I have been taught that I speak Bemba with a Nyanja accent.
Ah.
But the languages are so similar between Bemba and Ngoni Chewa or Nyanja. It's just intonation and, yeah. But I can speak Bemba. I think I understand the words. And because I speak to Bembas, I don't care how they understand or perceive my intonations or accent. So I do speak, yeah.
Okay. Growing up, your father was a diplomat. You did stay out of Zambia. I think you spent some time in Cote d'Ivoire, some time in Ethiopia. Building on that, what's your background like in terms of your childhood? Do you feel that you came from a privileged background, or do you also, relate to those that lived that life of, struggle, used to work, going to school, what kind of background do you have?
In fact, I like answering in this way in order to obliterate the misconceptions about how privileged one was. I think you must understand that historically in Zambia, or for a long time, there basically was very, very small classification as to the privilege and the classes. Most of our parents were either civil servants or workers of one form or other. Let's say on the Copper Belt, most of the parents were miners, just like us here, whose parents were civil servants, came into Lusaka. For many years, under the first regime, you could not discern or find very rich people. There were very few families, except, let's say, the Indian families or those very few Zambians who ventured at a late stage in their lives into business. So you found that the most privileged families, where you could count them on one hand or maybe two. So there was equity in terms of the schools you went to. All of us had free education, and we went to the best schools. Okay, I started my school first in Ndola. I was at Kaloko, which was what you can call that from the compounds now. Then I went to Perseverance, which was highly upscale, just after meaning, and it was a colored school. Those who know Ndola. From there, I went to Mindolo Primary School in Kitwe, which was for everyone. Moved back here, or came to Lusaka. My first school was at Thorn Park. I spent 1 year in Thorn Park and went to Lusaka Boys. By that time, Lusaka Boys was open to everyone. She was generally known as a white school. But then, now I'm talking about the late 60s and so on. Okay? From there, I went to Kabulonga Boys School. That's when my parents went to Ethiopia. I was going to Ethiopia in what we called Form 1 at that time, which was grade 8.
Yeah.
All right? I spent 2 years in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. From there, my parents were posted to the Côte d'Ivoire. But because it was a French school, my parents decided that maybe I go to Ghana. I went there for maybe 2-3 months at Achimota. I couldn't stand it. I came back here. Coming back to Zambia, I went to Mwale. So I'm an alumni of Mwale Boys Secondary School. From Mwale, I went to the University of Zambia. My whole basic education was spent here. I don't know, a lot of people have misconception that I went to America and so on. I never, all my education.
Where do you think that comes from?
I guess it's this thing of where people think that because your parent was in the diplomatic. At one time, my father went to America as the ambassador there. But by then, I was in university. So I never went with him. So all my education, all my skills, everything I acquired in terms of my formative years, my development, my whatever, was here in Zambia. I've never. In fact, I think I only went to an educational institution well after I had started working. I think by then I went for a sabbatical to George Washington University. I've always tried to do a master's and so on. I never failed. I never finished and so on. So I am 100% homegrown. To answer your question, therefore, I don't think I come from a privileged family per se, in terms of societal status or differentiation, but I come from a background of almost where everyone who was there during post-independence and during the free education, during the initial development stages of Zambia, was availed. Now, I want to stress this. There was equality among most of the parents. They were civil servants. My father died as a civil servant. Although his travels, because he was ambassador, he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, he became so exposed, he was a sophisticate, he was highly academic, and he took himself to school. Really, my father started going to school via correspondence. He took himself on scholarship. He worked as a social worker. He went to the UK. He was sponsored to go to America. One amazing thing about my father was that he had been given a scholarship of 4 years, but he did his first degree and master's in 5 years, University of California and so on. So he decided, said, I won't have this opportunity again. And he crammed himself and educated himself. Then he started his thesis and got awarded his PhD later on in years. But like many other Zambians in those times, they were just simple people who worked hard. It is that those ethics, that ethos, which we now lack. I know it will come up again. Let me give you another example of these people. This generation, which we have lost forever, okay? I remember one of the responsibilities my father was given was to prepare for the Non-Aligned Conference. I think this was in 1978, when Zambia was inviting all these people out here. So it was during that time that they built the Mulungushi Village, Pamozi Hotel, and they did that in 6 months. Okay? To build all that infrastructure as a matter of urgency. Now, I was sitting back one time looking at what all these people like my father did. If I had been given that opportunity, I would have been a millionaire. Because of the culture which we have.
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The contracts, they were dealing in millions of dollars. But they never stole a penny. That was in Kaunta's time. In the First Republic. They had massive projects, but they died poor. I mean, they died with loans. They died without being paid gratuity. And that was when there was money to spend, but none of them stole. Because they were not privileged to the vicissitudes of theft, to these behavioral patterns that we have now. Give Fisho Mwale a contract right now. You'll see me driving a Mercedes soon and on a government salary. So, once again, yes, I was privileged in the sense that I came from a background of hardworking parents who were simple people, who were civil servants, and they decided that the priority they were going to place on their children is to send them to school so that they could empower their children in order for them to be better citizens than they were. So my privileges come from the fact that my parents sacrificed to educate me.
Interesting. And so you tried out music later on in your life. You were in a band.
When I left university for 1 year.
So you quit university. Is it because you couldn't find a job or what?
No, I didn't. It's because I was just obsessed with trying to be a musician. So after I finished my university, I didn't work for 1 year. My young brother set up a band called Tafika. We have arrived.
Yeah.
And I tried to be a musician, but I was kicked out because I couldn't sing to save a soul. So I wanted so much. But then I think that is when I was introduced to managerial occupation, because they just said, "You're such a bad musician, just be our manager." So that was the first thing I started managing, my brother's band. And lo and behold, I never looked back. I've been a manager all my life. Yeah. So I did try my music, and then I used to play a lot of football too. Not only I started playing football when I was at primary school. My father used to be a goalkeeper of the national team, Northern Rhodesia national. Yeah, he used to be called Chikwama, meaning wallet. In Bemba, Chikwama is a wallet.
Why that name?
What you do? What happens when you put money in a wallet?
It doesn't
drop out. Just like he did when he catches the ball. It was like so. I played football. I started as a goalkeeper. Primary, secondary school, I was still a goalkeeper. Pretty good. I was in the first team at Kablonga. At Mwale, I started changing and became a center back. My serious football was at the University of Zambia. In those days, we had really good teams, very good and highly competitive. Because most of the people who would play in our university team were actually playing for first division, or what is now Premier. Yeah. Even I went for trials at the City of Lusaka Football Club. I was chosen. But then I was so busy at university with my girlfriend, I just didn't have time for football. So,
did you marry that girlfriend?
Yes, I married her.
Okay, no, that's good. We like to hear such stories.
So that's the sport. I played a lot of football, even international football, because at university we used to have the All Africa International Games, and we would travel to West Africa, to Egypt, to Malawi. I hurt my leg, which up to now gives me trouble. This one, I limp. People don't know that I have a shortened leg. I limp because of the injury I suffered in football, which they told me that when I was young, they told me if I don't have an operation, that if I don't fix this leg, in old age, it's going to give me problems. I should have listened, because now old age is beset on me, and my limp is even more pronounced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's my sporting. Well, then I played a lot of squash too. Yeah. I've never played golf. I tried once, disastrous. I'm impatient, I think.
And then, so so Unza, you did your BBA. Bachelor of Business Administration, then the music. Then talk to me about your working life, like your life as an employee, because I know that you got a job which later you got fired.
Yeah, it was beautiful. You finished your university. In those days, companies headhunt you, look out for you, and so on. Jobs were slightly more easier to get, and the marketplace was good, was robust. I got my first job with Zambia Steel and Building Supplies. It was a parastatal, okay? Specialized in importing building materials and then distributing them. Real great job. So I was there as a management trainee, and quickly I was promoted to a branch manager and area manager and posted to Ndola. Very young, before I even got married. 1 year later, I got married. And then after some time, I was fired. Okay? Just 2 months before I was sent to go and do a master's in the UK in marketing. So that was my first scholarship, which was given, which went down the drain because I couldn't take it up, because 2 months before I was due to leave, I was fired. Then the experience was so traumatic for me, I just said, I'll never be employed again. And
why were you fired?
I guess it was immaturity on my part, arrogance, and just unbridled youthful enthusiasm to do things. I called it managerial discretion, okay? meaning that because I was a manager, I could do all kinds of things. I extended credit facilities when the company was going through restructuring and they were having liquidity problems, and they had sent out a notice that no extension of credit facilities. So I did that to one of my very good customers. And when they told me to collect payment, I collected the check, which bounced. Now, under normal circumstances, I think things would have been okay and so on, but I already had a not so healthy relationship with my boss, okay? And when he started taking me to task, I think I was a bit rude in the sense I told him, I said, look, I don't think that I want your job. In fact, I want to be chairman or the MD of Indeco. Not, but I guess I was kind of rude and very arrogant. And so I was charged with insubordination, indiscipline, and so on. And later on, I was fired. So it was a learning curve, okay, that we were saying that in Mpamvu siyuposa lamulo. Since you asked me in Bemba, at amakata ya
You see, at Nyanja is better.
amakata ya chila. What?
I told you only know Nyanja. I told you a Nyanja person. I've been vindicated.
Amakata ya chimfia. What is the law? What is the law in Bemba?
The law?
Mm-hmm.
What's the law in Bemba?
Okay, I got it.
Circle back.
Amakata ya chimfia law.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Meaning that no, law is lamulo.
No, Lamulo. No, let's call someone.
Lamulo is. You see, the point here, it talks about modesty.
Yeah.
It talks about humility. Okay? Meaning that no matter how powerful you are, and it's instructive. It's instructive that you can be as powerful as you can be, but the law is the law. Okay? You can go to the gym, you can be a capeta. When you get back home and you have a small wife there, she might be the law, and her word is the law. So, in life, you have to respect the norms, the values, what defines us as a people. Okay? You have to respect that, no matter who you are. You can be a president, you can be a street sweeper. If you break the law, or if you try to surpass the law will always equalize you. It will always bring you down.
Good lesson there, Mr. Mwale. So
Yeah.
You're at this point in your life, and you get fired from your first job, and you tell yourself jobs are not
My
for
first
me.
job, I've got an expecting wife, I have no home, and I'm in Dollar, so I come back and start staying first with my parents, then I move in with my young sister. And I had said, no more, I'll never be employed again. Because, in these cases, you know, it takes like 6 months to a year for it to be resolved, and you're just roaming the streets. So I said, let me just look inwardly now and see what I can do. And I started trading. I started Makwevo. I started selling, at the time, women products for the hair. And there was a lot of hair relaxing those days. The brand was TCB. From America, I started walking the streets.
Where did the passion for that business come from? Or there was no passion, it's just about money?
No, I think that's what business is all about. You identify a need. Yeah. What do people want? And I learned from a long time that what women want is the basis to successful business. Because what a woman wants, the man will buy for her. So the market, identify the niche. What does a woman want? Clothes, makeup,
Hair.
including food, hair. I made my money with hair business. This was a product, relaxers, Jerry curls and so on. TCB was a big American thing. And because every American movie was showing these big froze, this thick hair and so on, and TCB, everyone, and it smelled good. And I started selling it door to door, and my business, my turnover was so high.
Okay, and then where'd you move from there now? How long are you in that women business?
I was in that women business like for 2 years or so. And then my turnover was pretty high. Well, let me just backstep a bit. You see, when I was at university also, I remember I started doing my business, my Kwewo business.
Yeah.
Because of the privilege I had of traveling to West Africa and so on, and I loved clothes. So I would bring, because every time I come back from West Africa, I'd be wearing these things, and people would say, oh, these are nice, and so on. I said, okay. I started bringing clothes while I was at university. I was doing so well that my father didn't even need to send me any money. Because remember, they were also on a civil servant salary. These people in embassies and in government, they don't earn much. Even ministers. People don't know. Ministers earn nothing. It's just allowances. I think their take-home pay could even be 15 to 20,000 kwacha per month. Their lives are subsidized. And we put so much pressure on these people because we've mystified, we've glorified the position of ministers or government workers. But strictly speaking, their take-home pay, you can't live on it. So when I was at university, I was making money to the extent that I could afford to even go on holiday to Europe in those days with my wife, with my girlfriend. We used to we traveled more before we got married at university because I had money. Okay?
So why did the business only run for 2 years?
Huh?
I'm saying if you're making that good money, why did you only do the business for 2 years?
Because I was headhunted by one of the most successful Zambians at the time, okay? An entrepreneur of note, Mr. Musa Siame. He had a company called Mutende Investments and Siame Associates, which was a diversified group, but mostly focusing in companies based on the copper belt, mine supply-related companies, which he started buying because that time the government provided an opportunity through their Zambianization program where a lot of companies were being sold. So, interestingly, the man who had fired me, Fisho Musoni, bless his soul, who was my boss, met me one time and he had heard, I wasn't doing too badly and so on. And he said, I want to introduce you to this man who is a businessman. Maybe you could do something, or maybe he could give you a job. Now, the irony there is that, you see, the fact that he reached out to me meant that we had buried our differences. Mind you, he had fired me. But he still reached out to me, and for whatever reason, okay? And we became friends again. To the extent that, I don't know whether it was by design or choice, he actually named one of his children after me, where I think he took the name Fisho, because there are hardly any other
You're the only Fisho I've heard of in my life.
Yeah. So Phil Musoni facilitated me meeting this brilliant man, this successful man, who I had never heard of, Musa Siame. And he owned... Musa Siame was the equivalent of Sadanis. In fact, Musa Siame used to be a deputy to Sadanis in Indeco. So they both left more or less at the same time and built up their empires. So Musa had this empire he was building as one of the successful black entrepreneurs and so on. So he offered me a job, and unbeknown to me, I didn't know who Musa Siame was. In his office, I said, yeah, I can't even forget, he had these vinyl red big seats. He was quite a small man, but yeah. He ordered me a job, and I told him, I said, I'm sorry, sir, I don't think I can be employed. He said, why? I want to employ you as a marketing director and so on. I said, my experience in employment, I don't think I want to do that. So he said, okay, young man, what do you suggest? I said, why don't we go into partnership? I set up a company, and since you're going to provide all the financing, I have 20% and you have 80%. He said, no, let's do a 60-40. I said, yeah, okay, great. So he said, the trading company, in those days you had to get a lot of import licenses and so on. Trading company, he gave me an office in Luansha Road, somewhere there. And I started operating from there. Our head office was in Chachacha Road. Now, I was like the first black or first African Musa had, and it was very progressive for him, I think, because he had bought all these industrial companies, manufacturing companies, and most of them were headed by whites. Even at his office, it was more or less, there were a lot of, the high-ranking were white. But me, there I was, young and energetic and adventurous. I was his partner in this small trading company. But we started doing other things. And lo and behold, after about a year and a half, we decided to buy one of the Anglo-American companies called Don Gray, which was specialized in arranging trade finance for the companies on the copper belt and for the mines and so on. It was a UK-based company. And in those days, it was very difficult to buy or take over a foreign-owned company. So I used my resources and my persuasions and so on, because Musa gave me this as a task, and we managed to get authorization from Kaunda, President Kaunda, for us to buy a company. In those days you had to get, because it was a foreign company. Yeah. When I look back, I think that was freaky. So we bought that company, and we moved into our new corporate offices, which is here by the corner of Independence, opposite the High Court, where Anglo-American and so on, I don't even know what they call it now.
Opposite the High Court?
Next to Minister of Finance. Yes. Yeah. Where Boat was and the other Anglo-American companies there. Because it was a former Anglo-American company, we took offices up there. Why am I mentioning this? Because we're the first black company to occupy that office, that office space. It was prestigious, Anglo-American. You move in there. We bought that company. So after some time, but this company was specialized in arranging trade finance. And it was just right up my creek and so exciting because now it availed me an opportunity to start traveling. Our head office was in the UK, but I thought that let me expand the mandate or the portfolio of trade by now starting to look at other African countries, all right? Using our London-based company as a launching pad and going into all these territories with finance for lines of credit, etc., blah, 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 that kind of thing. And we were successful. I was one of the people to open up and set up camp in Angola, which facilitated other Zambian companies to start going to Angola. But I was the first to go into Angola. And I know that the other very big business person who came into Angola with a little help from me in terms of opening up and was Mrs. Mwanamwamba, the Bimzi. She started exporting meat, vegetables, and so on. Oh, it was an exciting time. But my company gave me an opportunity to start building network and relationships with other equally very young entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs, because I was going into Angola, I was going into West Africa, Nigeria, Togo, all those areas exploring and opening up new markets. Although my mainstay was in Angola, which was a very difficult time at the place at the time because it was post the war.
Yeah.
All right. And they were engaged in reconstruction, in rebuilding, etc. So we did very well for like 8 years. And we were now structuring big deals. I dare say that possibly every business that I see now, we probably were innovators. We started, we tried to do it, and so on, etc. But it broadened my horizon. It opened up my thinking. It placed me. I became a citizen of the world, so to speak, because of this exposure and these experiences. But I think that what I value most is that I created relationships or friendships with many different Africans, which up to now I still have. I can never get lost in Nigeria. I can never get lost in Ghana. I feel at home in Togo. I can go to Cairo, in Angola. So everywhere I go, I have a reservoir of contacts and relationships which have been built over many years. Congo, DRC, as well as Brazza, all those places. And this is what makes a man or a person, okay? How you develop meaningful relationships. It creates elements of loyalty, integrity, by way of demonstrative effect. When I see, like one of the most successful Zimbabweans, who is my best friend, Shingai Mutasa, Musawara Holdings, he owns Zimnat and so on. Shingai Mutasa, the owner of Cresta Hotels, Cresta Lodge Hotels, I was there when he started the business. The other big oil magnates in Nigeria, I met them when we were just kids running around London and talking big deals and so on, you know. So that is what enriches your life sometimes. The people you've met along your way and how you've maintained those. And your own friends become your own mentors. So the friendships you create and the friends you choose sometimes help you in your life in terms of your success. So it's very important.
Okay. So you were part of Mutende Investments, obviously, which is the company just from describing. I got a question request from Jefta. Jefta is the young man that do you know Mpali?
Yes.
Yeah. Jefta is that young man who what's his Mpali name? Kefas. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Kefas.
Yeah. So he asked a question. I feel like it's a smart question.
Was he stuttering when he asked?
He was typing.
Okay.
So his question was, how did you recover from the shock after losing shares in Mutende Investment, and how did you handle the situation?
Okay. I think the question is, after we went into receivership.
Yeah.
Yes. That was lesson number 5. Since I've talked about many other lessons here anyway. Here I was young, in my late 30s, living a life of jet setting, all right, globe trotting, and Zambia started going through a recession. Banks started collapsing. Like the Mutende Group had actually on their portfolio 2 banks, which was owned by the group through Mr. Siame. And we had like 20 other companies. And as the mines went into a recession, meant that even the companies which were associated in terms of the supply chain started having financial difficulties. And then loans were starting to be called left, right, and center. So I remember this particular time I was busy in Angola. I had lost a bit of touch with what was going on here. Meaning, by illustration, I'm saying that I come back, I virtually arrive here in Lusaka. I go to my house and I find a letter of seizure of my house. Okay, what? What's going on? I call I call my senior partner, and tells me, we are in problems, young man, and you have to move out of the house. We had used that house as collateral and so on. Overnight, I was thrown out of the house. And because our company, the directors who were here were also directors in the London company, and there were a lot of intercompany financial relationships. It meant that even our external operations were sacked. So the whole company collapsed. The whole, just like what happened to Chibote of Meridian. Yeah? The domino effect started with the Meridian group of companies, the Meridian banks in West Africa, until Zambia. Everything went into liquidation. So there I was now with a family, and found myself no job, no income, just debt. I still had a little bit of reserve. I remember we went and started renting a house after living in a mansion in Ron Road, Kabulonga. Got a house in Chadley, started hustling, pay rent and so on, and went back again into my hustle, okay? But by that time, what was only left untouched was my wife's restaurant. She had a restaurant in Chachacha Road called the Old Bakery Restaurant. And I was numbed I was catatonic. You don't know what it is, maybe, but maybe you know. But to be stripped of nothing, everything, and you're just sitting there. So I decided to start working or to help my wife But over time, I think within 3 or 4 months, I started waitering. Before long, I became a manager, and I'm working in the restaurant. But it became so humbling. And it was wow, you take a step back, where you've been waited upon, now you're waitering on people. That was just before 1991, just before the multi-party politics and so on. And our restaurant was a thriving place, and it even became a meeting place for most MMD people and so on. So I really became active in the politics at the time. But at the same time, I was now working at the restaurant for a good 2 years. Until the elections came up and so on. And then even though I was actively engaged as a young person at the time, I didn't want to start standing for elections or for MPship and so on. I was helping out with 1 or 2 candidates. But after the elections, after the new government came in, a year later, that's when we had the local government elections. And some of the people suggested, but you are in Lusaka, you are in the city center. Why don't you stand as a councillor? And anyway, it's a part-time thing and so on. And we need quality people, in councillorship. I said, yeah. And the thinking those days was great, because it wasn't about cadreship. It was about a new dispensation which required new skills and new qualified people into certain positions. Because remember, councillorship at the time was looked down upon, it's like a cadre thing. So the new group, we started having more and more educated people becoming involved in civic responsibilities. So I became a councillor. And I started, but you see, that training and that experience and exposure I had as a waiter, as a person who serves people, I think gave me a slightly stronger foundation to appreciate what servitude is to people. It definitely defined me. Because remember where I was coming from. I was a jet setter. Then boom, I'm down there. I'm serving people. A customer is always right. Then, as part of my rehabilitation, I'll start coming back into the public space as a councillor. And as a councillor, it's also one of the most humbling experiences, because everybody comes to you with their own set of individual problems. Everyone is different. And some of the problems, depending, you might think they are the most trivial. But to an individual who is coming to you and needs you to listen to them, it is probably a life-threatening issue to them. So it takes a certain mindset to start dealing at that level. Lusaka Central is the epicenter of Lusaka in terms of commercial and so on. So 1 minute you're talking to the poor of the poorest. The next you are dealing with a ratepayer, an irate ratepayer who is probably a millionaire. The next you are dealing with a marketeer. Next you are dealing with a transport owner. So it takes a whole set of different emotional intelligence and set skills.
Let me take you to back to the collapse of the company you were part of.
Mm-hmm.
What lessons did you learn? Because the fall was too much. Didn't you have investments that you could ride back on, or were you too comfortable that this will always be the case? We'll always have this money. I'll always be a jet setter. Was the receivership and the company falling obviously did catch you by surprise, but in the back of your mind, didn't you ever have a plan B?
No. For instance, I didn't even own a farm. Okay, my old man had his farm and so on, but I never thought about investment into sustainable or viable fallback position kind of activity. All right? I guess I was still in my youth with playing with a lot of money. We're on lesson what? Lesson 7? You know what they say? Hindsight is 20/20 vision. You know what it means?
Looking back.
That saying, that hindsight is 20/20 vision, meaning that when you have an opportunity to look back, okay, you see things so clear that you don't even need glasses. Meaning that if you say that, if only I knew better, I wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a situation of where you start regretting. I don't regret in the sense that the experiences that I had fortified me, and I put me in a position of where I could say, I now know better. But you know, Srilanji, when the luxury of being old now and so on is that you can share, even philosophically, in some of the lessons that we have learned, okay? And I'll say this, that one weakness I see in our society as Africans, as Black people, is the lack of strategic planning. And this goes across all strata of our society, be it at government. Oh, let's start at family level, at community level, at society level, at national level, specifically at government level, at institutional level. We lack this capacity to even plan at national level of 50 years from now. No one in government, if you ask them, those who are vested with the privilege and position to plan for this country can tell you, so do you have a master plan for Zambia 50 years from now? If you ask the Americans, they can actually tell you where Zambia will be 50 years from now, because they have people who are dedicated to plan for us through their strategic thinking. We barely plan. Our long-term or national plans are maybe 10 or 20 years, which we never even follow or look at.
On the part of a business, how can a business do that? Because most businesses, they don't plan. Most businesses, yes, they plan. They have 5-year strategic plan.
Yes,
but most of them it's 5
But what is growth all about? How can you grow without knowing how you are going to achieve that growth? Which means planning. Okay, you have a term sheet, which is related, is time factored, meaning at such and such a time, these are our financials. This is what we are going to do. This is where we are going to grow. This is where we are going to invest. Now, one of the reasons why we even fail to plan, even financially, is because we have an inherent weakness in the culture of saving. White people, families, they taught us about a piggy bank. You remember?
Yeah.
When you are growing up, hey, put your penny in the piggy bank. That is acculturizing the young or the most formative children or members of our family to inculcate a certain behavior or culture of saving. You start at that level. Whether the kid wants sweet or what, they don't break that. If you learn how to save, that is the first step in creating what we call generational wealth, or simply put, family wealth. Because you are learning that when you have excess, you keep for a better day. But even if you don't have excess, you think of a bad day in the future, you still deny yourself and say that even if I have this little, what if I have a crisis in 3 months or 4 months' time? Let me save a bit. Economies are run the same at family level, at national level. So even in terms of business, you must strive to acquire certain behavioral patterns, certain cultures, which make for successful business. Okay? One, you want to enter into business. Evaluate your attributes. What are you capable of doing? Okay? What are you good at? That's the first step towards capital creation. Identifying your personal asset, your God-given personal asset. If you are good with your gab, if you know how to talk, if you can talk well, fast, and so on, and you have a retentive memory, already it's an asset. Maybe to be a great sports commentator or a preacher. You see, you identify, first of all, my name is Fisho Mwale. What am I good at? Okay? Now, how do I convert my skill or my basic qualities? How do I monetize them? How can I use to create value against what I do? We are not even now talking about the fund, the money, and so on. Okay? I said to most of my young people, I said, look, the easiest and most accessible asset to a Zambian is land. Each and every one of us have the possibility of having land. Because we come from somewhere. We come from a village. Even if you haven't been there. The minute you leave Lusaka and you enter your village, the population density is so high. I mean, so low. Meaning that there is expansiveness of land. Countries have gone to war over land, over scarcity of land. We have land. We have water. We have natural resources, therefore. But we think of land in town. And yet it would take you maybe 200 kwacha to go to your village and just spend even 1 month to organize yourself or how to cultivate that piece of shamba where your parents, uncles, or relatives live. Because they don't utilize that land, they'll probably let you. And you even tell them, look after this. We'll share the proceeds. You're already creating capital. But you are creating a livelihood. You are utilizing our natural God-given resource. I compare. Look at Rwanda. Rwanda, one of the most hilly countries, the smallest country compared to Zambia. The population density there is high. People fight for land. But look what they are producing. Look at Israel, one of the smallest countries there. But it is one of the, I think, biggest suppliers of citrus fruit. And we sit on our backsides and complain because we do not realize and look at what is available. We don't do our own personal audit as what do we have. Personally, what do you have? Okay? Now, business ideas. Just acquire the mantra that where there is a misfortune, there is a fortune. Where there is a misfortune, there is a fortune. There is a need in any given situation, disastrous or otherwise. It's being sordid, but I can tell you, if there's a flood, there's someone who is going to make money on that misfortune. Either providing buckets, either going to clean the houses which have been flooded, either providing some form of shelter, either providing some food, either providing some transportation, you know. But it takes a mind to look at opportunities. It takes a little creativity to take advantage of that opportunity and make it to benefit you. Right now, I keep telling some of the younger generation that, you know, you probably have limitless opportunities at your fingertips because it's an information age. You don't even need to go anywhere to see. You spend so much time on social media assimilating different cultures, assimilating different ideas, looking at different opportunities. But what most young people don't do is that they focus on, they consume what they are being given, but don't want to relate it to their environment and say that if this is happening there, how can I use this knowledge I'm acquiring to fill this void in my own controllable environment? So there's a discord. You have this thing at your fingertips, but to what extent are you utilizing those opportunities? You are learning, you are listening, you are absorbing, and so on, to your own environment. Because you cannot transport yourself to where that is being produced, but you can control your environment here to bring what is being produced there to here, to create your own business opportunities. We never used to have that type of accessibility to information. You know, I'm from the telex age. I'm from the fax age. When BlackBerry came, I said there'll never be anything as wondrous as this. Boom, before long. So the tech age propels you backwards and forth between different worlds. Culture is dynamic, meaning that it transforms. But don't lose your core. Don't lose your core values in terms of assimilating other cultures, because the core values are what make you a unique individual, a Zambian. So culture is about looking at what is good and what is relevant to you and then looking at others and taking the best out of there so that you add onto yours to make you a better person.
Wow. That's there's a lot of wisdom in you, Mr. Mwale. And talking about those principles you've highlighted, how did you start Yalelo?
Yalelo was started out of desperation by me. First, boom, I lost my job, I lost my company, I went bankrupt, and then I started my business. I became a specialist in debt restructuring, debt buybacks, debt financing, and so on. We were buying debt from all over Africa and so on in distressed economies, and then converting that debt into either equity, into doing buybacks, financing banks and so on. There are one or two banks which were financed out of debt transactions here. And this was all under the Bank of Zambia and World Bank restructuring programs. So as I got a lot of involved in that debt business, I became one of the, me and my partners, we owned a substantial amount of debt. We bought a lot of government debt here, which for like 4 years we were trying to convert into equity. We were trying to do all kinds of things. But then, due to misunderstandings and so on, there was a lot of political intonation too. By then, I had transformed. I was MMD. Then we were the Young Turks, and we were misaligned, and we formed new parties and so on. So I think at the time I was not really politically acceptable. I was spokesperson of FDD and so on. But my businesses became compromised in the sense that I think some of the people in government thought that I was making a lot of money, which I was going to use for my political ambitions, which was far from the truth. I was too selfish and too stingy to start throwing money after political causes. But what happened is that I fell foul of the system in the sense that I threatened to sue government on debt which they had defaulted to us. And then somebody tried to criminalize that without due respect to contracts and agreements. And for us, our agreement and contract was designed in such a way that any court action or arbitration had to take place in England. To this day, when I'm entering into very serious agreements, I would rather my agreement is offshore. So sometimes it is wise to have this offshore jurisdiction where you register your contracts and so on, just for the sake of country risks. I guess it all depends on country risk. You are the banker, you know what I mean. So we had registered our matter in London, and we proceeded to take our matter to that jurisdiction where we sued the government. It so happens that I think it was in my best interest to leave the country as this matter proceeded, because at the time there was so much euphoria about anti-corruption, and all you needed to do is label someone that he's corrupt. And I realized, because I saw it with many of my friends, when you are arrested here, there is this thing we consider a passport so exotic, and we are beholden to the issuing authority that they have to take away your passport. You are banned, you can't travel. And a free bird like me, I knew that one of my passions is to travel. Just confining me in one place, I would go crazy. And I could see that the minute I am arrested on trumped-up charges, my life is gone. The case might take even 10 years. And I've seen it with many, many people who've been victimized. So the wisest decision I made was to go into self-imposed exile. And because it was in the UK jurisdiction, the case took at least 3.5 years. So I moved to South Africa, where I started living and trying to make a living out there until we won the case in London. I stayed away for 7 years. And I think that was some of my most productive years, which if I had spent here, you'd have had to go through 5 people to see me, an appointment. I'd have been a billionaire. I would have owned banks. Because I think that was my most productive period in my life, my most creative. So even though we won the case, which was never pronounced here, because the government was very sensitive about that case. For those who might be interested, it's supposed to be a notorious case of Donegal International, because I was now being called as a voucher funds. That's when the term came up, voucher funds, that these are funds who go out to poor countries, buy debt on the cheap, and then sell it. That's debt restructuring or debt buying is not about that. It's willing buyer, willing seller. And when you buy debt, you must know what you're going to do with that debt, because debt is an asset. Okay? So you buy it at a discount. And discount is how you negotiate with the owner of the debt. As a banker, you probably know that. But it acquired this notoriety because to many NGOs out there, like the Oxfams and so on, we were looked at as heartless people who would buy a 20 million debt for 1 million and then demand from government the full principal amount, which was not the case. So, the long and short of it, when I was claiming this debt, I was accused of corruption, of having bought this debt at a giveaway price, blah, blah, blah. But we won the case and we were awarded. Okay? And I continued. But remember, I had been out in exile for 7 years. How do you feed? How do you eat yourself? So even when I got my money, my payout, it had already been eroded by lawyers' fees. Just the lawyers, we had to pay like $6 million. And living on debt and credit, I was walking away with a pottery like 2 million or so, which I started investing somewhere else in Africa and so on, and lost. But then I decided to come back in 2010 because my father was unwell. And by that time, I think I had been, the case had died. There were so many issues which took place and so on. I finally ensured that I was no longer on the wanted list. And I came back. I came back virtually to nothing and just started thinking, hey, what am I going to do now? And it was like one day I was just mulling around and said, and I started hearing about these fish shortages, etc. and so on. I said, God damn it, what's wrong with us? There's so much water and so on. There must be something. I started reading up, okay? And that's when I discovered aquaculture, just on Google and so on. And when I was making those discoveries, I seriously, Suilanji, thought that some people were already doing that. So when I ventured to go to Lake Kariba, because I had heard that there was one or two people doing aquaculture, I only found one guy who became a friend of mine, one of the best aquaculturists this country had ever produced, Salim Daouji. He was doing something small there and so on. He was really trying really good in theory and so on. So I got engaged with him and so on. And I joined his company. I became the chairman of Savannah Streams briefly. And I said that, look, for me, I'm coming from big business. I like to think big. I said, Salim, we got to do something big. This lake is big. This lake is over 5,000 square kilometers. The distance between from one end to another is, I think, like from here to Kapiri. Did you know that?
Wow.
That Lake Kariba. Yes. The only other big fish producing company was on the other side, Lake Harvest. So we started talking about this, and I was now excited. I started getting passionate. That's lesson number 9. Read. You have Google. Learn about what you want to get into, especially now. There's so much information out there. I didn't even know how to spell aquaculture, for goodness sake. I couldn't even pronounce it properly. Up to now, I keep saying aquaculture. It's aquaculture, farming in water, okay? As opposed to agriculture, which is the growing of plants and living things on land. You are doing this now in water. That's right. Aqua is water. Culture is the growing of things.
Okay, so you tell him, let's do something big, and then what happens?
Yeah, I said, let's do something big because I'm used to raising money and so on. Salim, I have to say, he is of Indian origin. They're damn good business people, but very conservative. And when you want to go into business with our Asian compatriots, know it that there is a trail of a family behind there. Most of the business is family. That's another lesson. We spoke about generational health or wealth, or family wealth. Because we don't have a legacy of building wealth in the family. This is why up to now we keep on condemning Indians and so on. But they are strategic. Because their parents teach them how to save, they save, and then when they are growing up and getting into business, they're already finding a strong foundation of business practice, financial control, and basically responsibility to business. And they keep it in the family. For us, we don't have generational wealth. Because the basic tenets of building that are lacking, meaning strategic planning and savings. So Salim, he couldn't get and do what we wanted to do. I wanted big. I wanted to borrow big. They don't borrow big and so on. And I decided to approach ZDA and so on. There were one or two people had me out and followed me up, who later on turned out to be venture capital. One of the most expensive and dangerous, but it's funds available. I had the idea, I had the vision, but I had no money. Okay? So what do? You identify what you are good at, what you are able to do it, and convert that into your equity. So wealth abounds. Everyone has that potential and capacity. Don't start thinking of the problem of money first. Your problem is, what ideas do you have? Okay? How do you articulate that idea into practical or meaningful business idea? Then you identify and learn about your market. To every product, there must be a consumer. What do they want? What are the needs? And then you also look at cases, already existing cases. Why are these not at this level? Why have never grown? Well, exactly. The why leads to answers. And that's what I did at that particular time. Okay? So I knew I wanted to be big. I said, I want to be big. Being big, doing what? I started reading, aquaculture, meaning that I can actually farm fish. I can grow fish in a cage instead of fishing with a fishing rod. I'm already talking of tons, not 10 kgs. What is needed? It's financing, it's expertise. So I went out. I went into partnership with this venture capital firm, Gate. You start off, 150-50, want what? But if you have nothing, you start off according to how you quantify and value your contribution. So I went in with about 10%, okay? I didn't complain because I wanted to realize my vision. So when we started, I started doing, first of all, you see, when you are going into partnership, you must create your value through knowledge. You must know so that your contribution is clear and your relevance is defined. Okay? Because we all outgrow our relevance. But you must always remain relevant to your
What do you mean by we outgrow our relevance?
Look, I'm now 69. My company, the mean average in my company is 35. If I don't keep in tandem, if I don't keep in step with the modern management practices, if I don't keep in touch just with the technology, if I don't keep in touch with the market, if I don't keep in touch with the trends in the aquaculture industry, I become irrelevant.
I understand.
I have a vision. And in order for me to be effective, I must continually project that vision, but at the same time, the vision must be realistic to the times that I'm living in, as well as to tomorrow. So, when I started studying the market, it suddenly dawned on me that, yes, we are going to grow fish, but our market needs fresh fish. Zambians love fresh fish. No compromise. They want, when the fish is at the table, it's even breathing. That's how they want it. They open the gills to see whether it is red. Because I took a study of the market and I was listening. I said, damn, before someone buys fish, what do they ask?
Nialit.
Nialelo. Is it today's? Is it fish today's? Ukalipa, no kalipa, pogula somba. I said, that's it. They want fish of today. Now, I'm not going to call it fish of today. I'm going to call it in a local language, which is used in the market. Nialelo. I said, that's it. It is Yalelo. Our fish is going to be Yalelo. The minute I captured that name, it became a brand which defined who we were. It defined our ethos. It defined what we wanted to be, what we wanted to provide. And we say that every day, our company is going to be a company of today in terms of providing good quality food. If the company is of today, what does it mean tomorrow, it means that it will be of tomorrow too.
It will always be relevant 50 years from now, because even 50 years is still Yalelo.
Absolutely.
That's a good name.
So even from a marketing perspective, your name, your brand defines who you are. Okay? And we say that we want this company to grow to the extent that the nomenclature changes. Where if anybody wants to talk about fish, they don't even use that. They said, Tufuna Yalelo. It's like Colgate or Surf.
Yeah, one of those.
Yes. So that is how we are branding. But because we've committed ourselves to that name, it means that even our whole production, our whole culture must be geared toward producing the freshest, the safest, the tastiest fish.
So you got 10% in the beginning?
I got 10% in the beginning, yeah.
And how much do you have now?
Probably nothing.
You have no stake in Yalelo?
No, I do. But what I'm saying, you look, this is one of the most difficult business environments, okay? And tell me, who has money? What millionaires can we talk of here? Who is a billionaire here in Zambia? And those are the questions we must ask ourselves. A country with this huge, vast possibilities, vast potential, the best agricultural lands. You have an oasis of high technological development in the mines, where you find the best technology, but you never find the necessary linkages which could have led to industrialization, which would have opened up all that whole cadre of specialization who have been workers and are supposed to graduate into industrialists to set up manufacturing, processing, distribution. We don't have that. This is why we don't have millionaires. Because by now, we would have entities which are producing machinery owned by people like you, young Zambians. This is why we must ask ourselves, where have we gone wrong? Even the financial sector, the banking sector, is one of the most backward. They are anti-development. No one in the financial sector has the guts or the capacity to create business. Because if you have no money, you must be able to create business. And you create business by creating industries, by creating companies. But our cost of financing here is so high. The minute you borrow, it's lunda. The next thing is you go into liquidation. We can never be competitive because the fundamentals are negative to growth of a Zambian entrepreneur class. We have the wherewithal in terms of education, in terms of skills, even in terms of energy. But the space within which to thrive, even the mindset which is needed, has to start first of all with the bureaucracy. But after so many years in the business space, I can tell you, when you have a business idea, the first point of competition you have is a civil servant who are supposed to be facilitators. How many people have lost project proposals by presenting them to government institution and bureaucrats. The bureaucrat there is going to kill your idea and take that project and give it to one of the tingachite now. You can do it now.
I'm still curious about your stake in Yale.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying, okay. Let me, since these are some confidential matters, let me just say that, look, Yalelo, we started it with about $2.5 to $3 million. Over the past 10 years, we have invested maybe circa $35 million. The value of the company now is slightly over $200 million. And this is in a space of 10 years.
$200 million.
Yes. So when you talk of phenomenal growth, it is what is being experienced right now in Yalelo. It comes at a cost, but it has been worth the investment. All right? So most of the money we have had, have been from financial institutions. And you know, simple business, the more you borrow, the more you dilute yourself until you are able to buy back.
I get your point.
So for me, even if I go down to 1 or 2%, Yalelo is a legacy project. Yalelo is a Zambian project. Yalelo is Fisho Mwale. I'm sure if I died now, 10 years from now, you remember, there was this chap who had a fishy name called, who started this company. Company yake ija. Sana You know, one of the proudest thing I have is that I might be broke, I might have nothing, but I'm party to those innovators who started a great Zambian company, which is now being recognized worldwide. That, for me, is the biggest reward than having $1 million in my pocket, because it sets an example that it can be done.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, we can do many things in Zambia. And Yalelo is where it is, not because of Zambian institutions, not because of Zambian finance and so on. I wish that was the case. If that had been the case, I would probably own 90% of Yalelo. But I did not allow the obstacles of mobilizing resources and finance locally to deter me from this project. I was fortunate. Remember, I gave you a background that I've kept my contacts over many years.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that I could access and invite people who would invest in this company. Okay? Regardless of the makeup, these days, this is a global world. Soon, Yalelo maybe might be floated. Now, when you float a company, who does it belong to? Everyone.
Yeah.
So, that is not the important thing. The important thing is that it is a Zambian company, born and bred, and the brand is Zambian.
Yalelo, people think because your name is Fish, then Yalelo, ever since you were a kid, you always wanted to, run a fish business. So quite a beautiful coincidence in any way. But Mr. Mwale, I would like to find out, what are some of the principles that you applied in business? For example, in Yalelo, because you said in 10 years, the growth has been tremendous, that small businesses in Zambia can apply to grow their business. The principles.
You see, I think when you're a founder or you start a company, such as we did with Yalelo, remember I mentioned to you that you must define and understand your capacity and capabilities and your skills. I had this vision, and I was even insisting, no, I want to be the CEO and I want to run this company. But Yalelo is such a specialized company that up to a certain point, your vision will not carry that company. You have to realize when you are inadequate to be contributing meaningfully to a project. And at some point, I realized that it has grown to a level where I don't even understand. Meaning that you need food technologists, you need aquaculturists, you need people who are learned and who are educated in that business. So what you do is that, yes, I'm the owner, but what is in ownership if the company is going to collapse? Let us, and me and my partners decided, said, let us employ the best who will build the company.
Why do you think most small businesses fail to grow?
I think from my experiences, remember I talked about strategy, I talked about planning. Sometimes anticipation of trends or events is critical to business survival. This is why I'm saying we must have foresight. We must think of the future. Where are you going to be? Where do you want to be? Most small businesses think and operate on an ad hoc business, on an ad hoc basis. Chipante-pante. Okay? You must have the capacity to develop short-term, medium-term, long-term. You must have the capacity to build mitigatory instruments in your process. Meaning, you must be able to think that if I have liquidity problems at this point, what will I do to ensure my business survives? Do I go to a bank? Do I seek concessionary funding? Do I apply to this and so on? What are the tax incentives? Or what are other things that I can do to ameliorate this? Am I able to downscale? And I always think that the example must be set by the vision carriers or by the owners. Sacrifice must be with them first before your employees. And if I am seen to buy a Mercedes-Benz and then everyone knows that my company is under financial stress, what message will that give? Okay? If you are going to be frugal, it must be as a way of demonstrating that in order for us to survive, we have to deny ourselves certain comforts of life or necessities. So we tend sometimes not to live within our means, especially if your business is growing. You have to deny yourself certain things. I remember I used for 6 years Japan, what is this? Japan what?
Japan vehicles.
Pajero or Yakuti. For 6 years, it was even crying that, hey, Daddy, Nalema. But, fortunately, I was with my partners who I kept thinking that they're so stingy and they don't respect. But the point is that if our company could not afford, all right, I shouldn't be the one to be insisting and demanding. Because my new general manager, who I'm giving conditions to, we want, and it will be replicated all over. Now, you are already reeling under bank interest and so on. So business priority must be given to good practice. It must be given to good controls. It must be given to strategic planning and thinking. And you must always pace yourself and think in terms of where will I be in 3 years? Who else will be there with me in terms of competition? And the ability to react to your market timely is a mark of good survival. It's like everybody is wearing bell bottoms. Everyone is buying bell bottoms. You see the trends are changing, but you still want to keep stocks of bell bottoms. Who are you going to sell it? This is why sensitivity to your market is very important. And at times, you must also be able to start influencing your market. That's what leadership is called, is all about. You can actually even create your market by the type of service and brand that you offer. So you grow your market, not only organically, but by stimulating the market itself to start appreciating your product. That is what is called the competition too, by now being better than your other competitors. So never sit back. It's a dynamic process. And I always tell people that our shortcoming of poor reading culture, we should overcome that. There is no substitute for education. At any level, you must always think of self-improvement. Do not be satisfied with where you are, because you can always do better. So your achievement motivation ratio must always be high. Don't always be satisfied with what you have and where you are, because you have God-given attributes and gifts to always do better. So, and how do you do that? Reading culture. Be osmotic. Always strive for knowledge. Be hungry for knowledge.
Like a sponge.
Exactly. And you young people, you have brains with such huge capacities. And, one of my biggest fears is the technological gap that is widening between ourselves and the world out there. It's frightening, the amount of knowledge that we are lacking. If you compare an 8-year-old in Europe, in America, or where, to a 20-year-old here, in terms of technological knowledge, you'll be ashamed. And yet the world is moving to smartphones, is moving to a technological era which requires a different set of skills, different occupational jobs. We are reading right now that operations soon might be, microsurgery might be done by computers, which is real. It is happening. You've heard, even the legal profession is, in most parts in America and so on, is even being taken over by internet courts. You might not need lawyers. So your children, the type of education that must, and this is called strategic thinking. Your children, you must start even in your home environment, exposing them to the new trends that are happening in the world in terms of education, in terms of skill set, in terms of other interests. Because you are preparing for the future. A future which will totally be different from the environment we are thinking of here. And it's happening. But are we thinking like that at national level, at society level? Are we thinking like that at individual level? No, we are complaining of cadres.
Mr. Mwale, I was going to ask you for 5 pieces of advice, but you've given a lot. What's the one thing that, if you were to say to an entrepreneur, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to any person in business?
Consistency, integrity. Your word is your bond. Integrity is very important because you pay what you owe. you know that, as I mentioned to you, that nationally, our culture is for debt forgiveness. It is even expressive that even me, I'm a culprit, to pay back my debt. It's like I'm giving this person money which is not due to him. But it all falls on the levels of integrity that we have. Where a handshake in business should mean honor. So, if you create that character and persona of your handshake is your bond, your word is your bond, it defines how the amount of integrity you have as a business person. Integrity is very important, even in terms of delivery of your products. It must be defined as quality because it comes from a person of integrity. And as I wind up also, I think that tenacity, I did mention consistency, but tenacity, because there is nothing easy in business. There is no easy business. There is no winning of a lottery in business. You must have the ability to fall down and get up. Because success only comes to those who work hard, those who sacrifice, those who are consistent, and those who have integrity to be honest about their passion. And if you take a business, be serious about it. Not remotely, vapat time, chani. Be serious. And being serious means that acquire as much knowledge, know about that business, and when you are ready, when you are sure that you know what you want to do, that is when you start investing on that path. And investing, I'm not talking only about money, investing your energy, investing your effort, investing your focus into that business.
What about those who start learning about the business when you're already in the business?
Good luck.
Mr. Mwale, thank you very much. No, thank you so much for the time. You've dropped a lot of wisdom, a lot of nuggets. I've learned so much from you. And I know that the entrepreneurs, their notebooks must be full by now.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And I feel like also, and the thing I've learned from what you said is the lessons in entrepreneurship are consistent across generations. The same
Yes.
principles that businesses used to succeed 20, 30 years ago, even
Yes.
today, if you try and, this was 20 years ago, it won't work, it comes at a cost.
Yes, that's it.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Mwale.
Thank you. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. That was our conversation with Mr. Fisho Mwale. He's an entrepreneur. I'm sure now we know his story. We know more about him than we did before the podcast. We know about his DJing. And you said you actually sued. So where can people, listen to your music and whatnot?
Oh.
Where do you play?
LM Radio.
LM Radio.
Yeah.
And when is that?
It's on Sundays.
Okay.
Yeah. But what we have done now is that I've gone on a sabbatical or a holiday.
Yeah, a break.
I have to do a lot of research for my next show, which starts in a month's time.
Okay.
And you'll be advised which format. Remember, I wanted to start doing podcasts so that I can broadcast it on more than one radio
Oh, yeah.
station. Yeah.
And for podcasts, the audience is unlimited.
Yes.
Okay.
But remember, I'm also in energy now.
Yeah,
when I talked
hydro,
about relevance,
Yeah.
when you read the market, the landscape, and the misfortunes, everybody's talking about energy. So, guys out there, start reading, start seeing opportunities in the energy space. The misfortune of Zambia in energy is your potential fortune area for you to make.
So what are you doing in energy?
I've been involved actually for the past 4 or 5 years with hydroelectric project scheme, which we've been trying to implement, and I'm sure we'll do it now because there is a crisis. But if we had strategic planning, would not have to reach this stage. We would have done it 5 years ago. But everything done in a crisis, there's a cost factor to it.
Yeah.
Strategic planning. Where are we going to be? And what have we put in place in order? When we reach that point, there is no disaster. Thank you.
Everything done in a crisis, there's a cost. We'll see you next time.